Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live tonight. So, tonight we are going to be going over the video for Sebastian Rogers that I released yesterday, I believe it is. So, the video we're going to be looking at is Sebastian Rogers Star Speak. His soul mission is hidden in his birth chart and analysis. So, I have that pulled up on the back screen, and I want to say hello to Chief and everyone as you come in. I hope that y'all been having a great day so far. And we'll probably go ahead and jump straight into the video. It's about a 10-minute video. So we're going to go ahead and play that, and then we will kind of go over it once it's done. But I believe for the whole being here today. Today's video is a sacred and deeply personal one, not just for me, but I believe for the whole collective as well as Sebastian's army. We are going to be looking into the birth chart and soul mission of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, a child whose disappearance awakened something in many of us. Whether you followed his story from the beginning or you're just now discovering it, this isn't just about a case, it's about a soul who came here with purpose, a message in a vibration that still ripples through the collective field. Through his astrology, I want to share with you what his spirit came here to teach, what he still wants us to remember, and how his own journey continues beyond what his eyes can see. Please take a breath, center yourself, and open your heart as we step into Sebastian's soul story. So we are now beginning with Sebastian's spiritual mission, a timeline of soul purpose. Number 1, pre-birth. Sebastian's soul carries a karmic fire that is preparing to spotlight family shadows and raise collective consciousness. The North Node in Aquarius and Pisces, depending on his time of birth, indicated a soul intention to heal through collective service or elevate through spiritual compassion. Early years, age 0 through 5. This time sparked early signs of sensitivity and awareness. His presence often quieted rooms, and he felt more than he said. Sebastian's Sagittarius sun expressed through curiosity and openness, which started laying the foundation for him to question authority and explore deeper truths. Number 3, later childhood, 6 to 10 years old. Pluto square sun's effects became more active. This brought in themes of control, secrecy, and urgent emotional currents starting to emerge. He may have tried to speak up or push against boundaries in his family. This struggle was a stepping stone. His energy began shaking something in the system, a karmic rattle that needed to be heard. Number 4, transition point, his disappearance. This was a pivotal moment that was meant to force shadows into the public light. His plan was never to disappear forever, but to break the pattern enough so others would not forget, not question, or minimize him ever again. That moment marked the initiation of his larger public and spiritual legacy. Number 5, post-disappearance. Sebastian's energy shifted from incarnational suffering to deep soulful tasking. He then soared into a new form of work. These include guiding others, inspiring videos to help search for other missing children like himself, and participating in spiritual activism. He sends light to others, music, and signs, marking the start of his mission beyond the physical realm. Number 6, current phase. Sebastian's generating shifts in new policies such as Sebastian's Law, spiritual awareness, and emotional physical guardianship for other individuals like himself. He is now balancing his energy, which is more independent, mature, calm, and more intentionally present. Number 7, ongoing impact. Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' army can expect waves of healing, energetic storms of reckoning, and collective triggers all tied to his story. All are moving towards justice, change, and greater protection for children. Energetic transits on the day of his disappearance. Though we do not have his exact time of birth, key planetary alignments that day likely include Pluto conjunct natal Pluto or square Sun, which leads to cosmic rebirth energy inciting system collapse. Saturn transits lead to activating karmic endings or the revealing of hidden structures, familial or institutional. Uranus aspects are indicating sudden change and also shocking events that shatter illusions. These heavyweight energies illuminating that day indicate the start of an energy activation. The universe calls forth his soul mission by forcing shadow into daylight, putting it together. The karmic code was written for him before he came. It was written to awaken injustice and spark change through spiritual release. His disappearance became a holo trigger, not just one event, but a portal for systematic spotlighting. Now he is informed. He is present, intentional, and active in ways none of us could have imagined. His spiritual mission is here, and his army is both its vessel and its companion. Why this happened through his chart. Number 1, Sun in Sagittarius, the Wayseer. Sebastian's Sagittarius sun suggests he was born to be a truth seeker, a wonder of ideas, and someone connected deeply to justice, spirituality, and freedom. Sagittarius children often have a spark in their soul that won't be dimmed. This can challenge toxic or authoritarian environments. His light may have disrupted what was hidden in his surroundings. He came into this life not to blend in, but to expose, to awaken, and to shift. This is part of the painful irony. Children like him, whose souls carry freedom codes, are often placed in situations where their light agitates the shadows around them. Number 2, Pluto square the sun, generational trauma and power struggles. Sebastian was born during a powerful Pluto transit. Pluto in Capricorn was squaring his Sagittarius sun, creating a life path marked by power dynamics, abuse cycles, hidden truths, and potential generational karma. This configuration can show a soul born into a system it came to transform, trauma related to family control, secrecy, or authority abuse, and a mission that can involve death and rebirth themes, sometimes literally or symbolically. This can represent being born into a family or situation that holds deep ancestral shadows, and his disappearance likely represents a turning point for that system. Number 3, Mars and Uranus. Sudden acts, explosive energy. If we consider the 2008 Mars and Uranus placements, unexpected violence or disruptions could have been part of his timeline nearing 2008. Uranus represents shock, disruption, awakening, and aspecting personal planets. It can indicate a sudden event that shifts a soul's path, especially if the soul came to expose or shake up something in the collective. Sebastian likely sensed the rising danger well before anyone else did. Collective purpose of his disappearance. Sebastian's energy in his chart and in the field feels like he's a soul who volunteers to catalyze awareness. These children come through generations where systems are decaying. Think education, family, protection, justice, and they often become mirrors showing us what has been hidden in those. His disappearance show us, number 1, how society fails the voiceless, how the system ignored warning signs, how people believed surface stories and not the inner truth, and how protective services were ineffective. Number 2, how deep the silence runs around abuse. He pulls forward hidden layers in his family line. He reflects patterns of intergenerational harm and complicity. And number 3, that ordinary children can carry extraordinary missions. His light continues to connect, teach, and protect others beyond his disappearance. His army is the receiver of that mission. The soul contract plus his choices. Sebastian's chart has indicators of pre-birth agreement to act as a karmic disruptor in his family line. That does not mean he chose pain, but rather that his soul knew it would awaken justice, spiritual movement, and public attention. He carries North Node in Aquarius or Pisces, depending on the time of birth, signaling service to the collective, and a spiritual leadership theme, even through suffering. He also carries a path that may have included sacrifice so that others may be free, especially other children like him. What we need to know now. He connected to you after his disappearance because you could hear what others refused to. Your grief is also your intuition into a larger soul purpose. For the collective, Sebastian's chart shows that his disappearance isn't the end of his story. It's the beginning of his impact. Children like him are soul teachers. Their light does not dim in their absence. It spreads. That's what's happening through you. His chart shows his energy remains active in this world, shaping outcomes, creating cracks in the walls of silence, and stirring consciousness. Sebastian's energetic imprint towards his mother. Mom tried to quiet me, but my voice isn't hers to hold. I'm not waiting in the dark anymore. Don't stop. Your words call them out of their silence. I'm still here because the truth is too. And with that closing energy, this is going to be the end of the chart for Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. I want to thank you for staying with me through this sacred space. Sebastian's chart isn't just a map of stars. It's a love letter to humanity and a reminder that even the smallest among us can carry the greatest light. His energy continues to work through dreams, synchronicities, and hearts like yours and mine. Please leave a candle emoji or a green heart in the comments if you're holding space for him and for all the missing and forgotten children. I'll be here continuing this work, listening for him and honoring the spirit he is. Until next time, stay close to your soul and stay open to the unseen. He is still with us always. All right, everyone. So that is the birth chart analysis for Sebastian as far as his soul purpose, why, this possibly happened to him and what we need to learn from it. So I do want to start with the comments from it as saying, as far as addressing any kind of harm within the bloodline that could have been broken. And that's part of what this disappearance has exposed. The brokenness within CP and KP's bloodline. I feel like this would have been their opportunity to make things different and kind of handle things different that was done to maybe them or things that they saw as children, but they chose to not do that. They chose not to protect Sebastian, and they chose to handle it the way that they did. So I have to, agree with, Chief and Ken that it's unfortunate that this had to happen and come to this, but we have to kind of also look into why something like this happened and what we need to know and learn from it so that it can not happen again in the future. So I do think that because CPS is something that keeps being brought up in this, I think it's important maybe also with Sebastian's law at some point to also maybe try to reevaluate how CPS is handled and what's done within the system so that things like this don't keep slipping through the cracks. Because I feel like with CPS, at least I know where I am, you can call anonymously. And I feel like that's where a lot of the problems kind of happen a bit somewhat within the system, because I feel like if you're going to call and make such big accusations through CPS about things, I feel like you should have to say who you are. I feel like you should have to say, what proof you have, how long you know the child. And I feel like that would give it more credit. So things couldn't be dismissed in the future. At least as far as with Sebastian's case and some of the other kids' cases who have had CPS show up repeatedly on their case and things still ended up happening. So I think that this was a call to maybe look at those systems as far as, again, CPS and how the police also handle it when it's reported. Because I don't think the police also follow through with it to make sure that whatever CPS came out with, they also agree with. I think they just take their word for it and they move on. And as you can see in this situation, it kind of is starting to seem like the PFs somewhat have a connection to Ellie in the sense that they're very confident, at least CP is that he can go say these things and do these things and nothing's going to happen when he does react the way he does on the lives or just in general. So again, I think it would be good to kind of dismantle CPS and then kind of rebuild it from the bottom and then see what you get from that. So let's see. Yeah, and I agree. Regardless if the child has special needs or not, it should be taken to the same level for each child and paid attention to the same way, because I do know that they had also said on some of the CPS reports that Sebastian was told by the person who was investigating it that if he were to make these complaints again, that he would be in trouble. And I don't understand how that was said to him. I really don't. I don't understand how the police didn't look into it any further than that either. So yeah, and there is brokenness within the bloodlines. And also I did kind of already start a chart for Kyron Horman. And the reason I did that is because they were children both kind of mainly having the step parent, it seemed like, around them the most and kind of making some of the decisions. So I thought it would be good to bring Kyron Horman's chart into it. I also started that. So I was going to kind of share the beginning of Kyron Horman's chart before we sign out on this live. So we can kind of start going into that case too and maybe comparing them. So I just thought it was kind of important in that sense when I started looking into Kyron Horman's chart as well. There some of the similarities that were between him and Sebastian, and mainly being that the step parents seem to want to have a lot of control in these situations. And so I think that's also something that maybe parents need to be looking at when you do have a child and a step parent's involved. I don't think that step parents should ever be able to make all the decisions for, someone, their stepchild or anything like that. And I do think that's something that maybe a parent needs to watch for. So that's the reason why I wanted to bring these two cases in together. So it's also also with Sebastian's exposing corruption in the sense of that whole area. When CP talks about it, he's very confident that nothing's going to be said or done. And then when you hear Ellie talk about it, they really don't give much information on anything that's happening as far as leads, things like that. So they kind of just make you think they really don't have much. But you've seen, videos, their behavior, the past reports that they had on them, all of those things are there and valid reasons to question the whole system. So it does make you wonder who they know and why they're so comfortable, the PFs, saying and doing some of the things that they do. So let me read a little bit of what Chief is saying. And welcome, Ken. I'm so glad that you could make it. I know it's a hard... Okay, she already left. Yeah, she's in England. So I know sometimes it's hard for you to catch it. But thank you so much, Ken, for popping in. It's nice to see you as always. Let me see. And so, yeah, I kind of want to just start into Kyron's chart also. So I might kind of go ahead and pull that up and just kind of start reading into his, just so we can see the intro into it, because I kind of want to start marrying between the two cases, going back and forth between Kyron's and Sebastian's, mainly because I do feel there's similarities in a connection with the step parent being the one to kind of make most of the calls and shots when it came to the children. So yeah, we're gonna look into Kyron's. I probably will pull Kyron's up on the main screen so we can kind of see that too. So just give me 1 second. And hi, Kim. How are you? Thank you for joining us. I did go ahead and replay the video from yesterday that I posted for Sebastian as far as his sole purpose and kind of what we need to know about his disappearance, what we need to learn from it, things like that, so that we can kind of put laws in place and things like that. So hopefully things like this don't happen again. But I also was telling Chief that I had started a chart on Kyron Horman. And the reason I kind of wanted, again, I was telling everybody to do that is because the step parent kind of suspicion around the step parent is very heavy in both cases, and they influence. Now with Sebastian's, we know that his mother is as well. But with Kyron's, the stepmother is also somebody that I want to kind of look into more. And because it was such a different vibe when you looked at Terri Horman versus CP. Where you see CP, he's a lot more explosive, things like that, when you would see him on lives, where Terri was much more composed. So it was kind of hard. Yeah, Kyron. Yes. And in his case is very interesting because it's so similar in the sense they kind of just both disappeared. And again, the step parent had a lot to do with the storyline, what happened, especially for CP saying he wasn't there when it happened. He very heavily stuck his nose in it once he showed up the next morning, right? The 3 hours after 3 a.m. after the phone call. So let me kind of pull up Kyron's chart though. All right. So this is going to be Kyron's chart that I started. So we're talking about Sebastian's parents, correct? How do you feel his parents' energy is now? Not his father, his mother, and her partner, Chris. I feel like they're kind of hiding. I mean, I feel like they feel exposed. I feel like they're hiding, and I think that they're kind of on edge, feeling like the ball's about to drop any day. And I kind of honestly feel that it will. I don't think that, they're just narcissistic. In the sense it has to always be about them in every live that they've been on. It's never been about Sebastian at all. You know, it's always been about CP and his personality and what a great dad he was and all this kind of stuff, but he didn't even have access to his own child. So it's very interesting that he tries to act like, you know, he was completely balanced and doing the best for Sebastian when he couldn't even access his own child because of his own behaviors. So yeah, they had really big. And I say, and when you say they, I do think CP was speaking for KP too in the beginning. I do. I think that she was probably leading him a lot of the conversation, and then when he would explode, it's the things that he wasn't ready to answer to. So I think CP would KP would kind of tell CP what to say, kind of stay along the lines of this during an interview, and then when somebody threw him a curveball, that's when he would freak out, right? Because he didn't expect it. So I do think that KP is more of the brains and planning, and CP is more of like the upfront, the voice, and then the muscle if he feels he needs to be. Yeah, and Terri too, because Terri, I don't know if I think I saw where Terri had even multiple aliases. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I could have swore she had multiple aliases at some point. And then and the reason I say that is because that's a very odd thing for people to do too, have multiple aliases. I know that they had caught her, you know, having an affair right after Kyron went missing. And then to my knowledge too, they had found out that she had also tried to hire a hitman after Kyron went missing. And then I had heard also where an ex allegedly had said that she had also tried to hire a hitman on him. So not only has she tried to hire 2 hitmen in the past on her partners, in my opinion, from what I saw allegedly, but she also had numerous aliases. And I think, yeah. So that's what I heard too. Let's see. She did, and she's now Terri Vasquez, married a Mexican immigrant. Okay. See, I didn't know that part. So that's even more interesting. And then, so yeah, she's very, very fake in the sense of, you know, it's all about ego and all that kind of stuff and illusion and what you're showing people. So with that, we're kind of going to just jump into Kyron's chart. It's kind of automatically going to go into his personality. And thank you, Chief, for becoming a member. And also, Little Miss Sharon became a member whenever the live was posted. So I want to thank you both for becoming members. We greatly appreciate it. And then we will be kind of, again, doing these more regularly. I'm going to try to do them on Thursdays, but I also want to do them kind of maybe on the weekend too. So we're going to try to add 2 lives during the week on top of the video post that we do regularly. So let's go ahead and start Kyron's chart though very quickly. So we have Kyron Horman, his natal chart overview. So the birthday that I got for him was September 9th of 2002. I used Portland, Oregon for his location of birth because I'm not sure if he was born somewhere else. I know that's where he went missing. So I used that for his location of his birth. So his sun sign is a Virgo. And then his moon, which is estimated, is likely to be in Sagittarius. His Mercury is in Libra, Venus in Leo, Mars in Virgo, Jupiter in Leo, Saturn in Gemini, Uranus in Aquarius in retrograde, Neptune in Aquarius also in retrograde, Pluto in Sagittarius, which was also in retrograde, and the North Node in Gemini was in retrograde. Excuse me. So the personality and energy blueprint for Kyron Horman. So his sun is in Virgo. Kyron's Virgo sun reveals a gentle, observant, and deeply intelligent soul. Virgo children are often precocious, drawn to learning, details, and routine. They tend to have a heightened sensitivity to their environment, and they absorb both the emotional and energetic states of others. This would have made Kyron very attuned to shifts in tone, body language, and subtle changes in those around him. He likely had a strong desire to help or to be good, and he may have felt safest when his environment was predictable and kind. So I also felt like that was Sebastian. I think he very much had the energy to want to be good and to fit in and behave and be what they expected him to be. So I found that kind of mirroring for those two in the chart. So this placement can also make a child more vulnerable in dysfunctional or deceptive environments as they tend to try and rationalize things that aren't logical. Virgo energy seeks out order, but when they are placed in situations or chaos, this can cause inner anxiety and fragmentation. So Chiron's estimated moon is in Sagittarius. His moon is likely in early Sagittarius. This shows he's an intuitive, curious, and freedom-loving individual. And Sebastian was a Sagittarius sun. So Sagittarius moon children are very idealistic and trusting. They are often open-hearted and spiritually attuned. The energy suggests a bright and adventurous emotional nature, someone who would have been excited about science fairs, learning new things, and exploring the world around them. However, this placement can also indicate a child who wouldn't handle betrayal well, especially from someone they trusted deeply. The Sagittarius moon paired with Virgo sun suggests he may have trusted adults implicitly, especially if they presented themselves as knowledgeable or protective. So I kind of feel this way too when you look at Sebastian's chart. I think he tried to follow the rules that CP and KP gave him because he wanted to be good. He wanted to trust that they were telling him the right thing. And I also feel like with Sebastian's chart, when they did orchestrate this disappearance, I think that they kind of told him a little bit what was going to happen. I think the reason that they did that was because they didn't want him to kind of push back and not behave during the process, because that would be more obvious. So with Kyron and him being a Virgo, I kind of feel like, again, that was the same thing. I feel like Terri knew if she told him probably what was going to happen, he would be more complicit and easier to get to where she wanted him to go. So again, I find where those two energies mirror each other in their charts. So we're going to go into his Mercury, though, for Chiron's. So Mercury in Libra. Chiron's Mercury in Libra is diplomatic, soft-spoken, and oriented towards fairness and harmony. He likely had a thoughtful, polite way of communicating, choosing words carefully and picking up on others' moods. This can also suggest he was less confrontational and more likely to avoid conflict than provoke it. If he were ever in an unsafe or confusing situation, this Mercury might have made him more inclined to stay quiet or compliant rather than push back, especially if the other person was in a position of authority like his stepmother, Terri, was. And that's how I kind of feel about when you look at the Roadhouse video of Sebastian sitting there with his mom. I almost feel like she's already kind of telling him a little bit of what's going to happen later once he gets home. And only the reason because he's looking at her kind of as if he doesn't want to. And then you can see where she's telling him like something's going to happen or you're going to do as I say. So it does make me wonder how much she had told him possibly before this happened. With Sebastian at the Roadhouse restaurant. So for Chiron, his Venus was in Leo. So Chiron's Leo Venus suggests he had a big, loving heart and may have enjoyed being seen, praised, and recognized, especially for creativity and kindness. This placement often points to a bond with a parental figure or teacher who made him feel special. There's a sweetness here that speaks of a child who wanted to make others proud. Mars in Virgo. Mars in Virgo gives a methodical and cautious drive. Chiron likely followed instructions well and may have been anxious to do things right. This is not the placement of a rebellious or impulsive child. It speaks more of someone who would observe carefully before acting. He likely did not stray far from safe routines without prompting or guidance from someone he trusted, which would have been his stepmother. And in Sebastian's case, it was his mother and stepfather that he was trusting to guide him in the right way. So Chiron's Jupiter is in Leo. This further amplifies his inner light, sense of playfulness, and generous spirit. Jupiter here bestows a radiant energy. Chiron likely had a charismatic spark, even if quiet or introverted. He could light up a room and people might have naturally felt protective of him. Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Outer influences for Chiron. Saturn and Gemini. Saturn here suggests early karmic lessons related to communication, truth, and trust. There may have been adults in his life who either restricted his voice or modeled confusion around truth. He may have felt like he needed to make sense of adult contradictions, especially if promises were broken or facts didn't line up. Uranus and Neptune in Aquarius, retrograde. These generational placements emphasize a spiritually gifted and intuitive child. Kyron likely had unique ways of seeing the world, perhaps a love of science mixed with a fascination for mystical or imaginative. The retrograde motion implies a soul who had returned with a mission, possibly involving spiritual evolution or awakening of others through his life path. This can also suggest he may have had a strong connection to technology or electricity. Some missing children with strong Aquarius energy affect electronics or clocks after their passing. Pluto in Sagittarius retrograde. This generational Pluto brings forward themes of truth, justice, and transformation. In retrograde motion, it may symbolize deep, hidden truths. This was especially highlighted around trust, belief systems, and manipulation. It also points to karmic exposures of hidden matters. Things kept secret may eventually be revealed. North Node in Gemini, Kyron's soul purpose. Kyron's karmic path involved learning to express his truth, to question what he was told, and to become his own voice, much like Sebastian's. He may have come into this life naively trusting, but his soul was learning how to navigate complexity, duality, and discernment. This placement tragically aligns with the possibility of being caught between stories, between people saying different things or hiding information. Yet it also suggests that his story will not remain hidden forever. Gemini nodes often bring truth into the public discourse, sometimes post-mortem. Spiritual impressions and disappearance themes. Astrologically and energetically, there are signs that Kyron's disappearance was not random, just like Sebastian's, and that manipulation by a close adult figure played a role. The Virgo energy trust and obedience, while the Virgo energy shows trust and obedience, while the Sagittarius moon shows naive faith in adults. With Mars in Virgo and Mercury in Libra, this energy reinforces that Kyron was not confrontational or rebellious. He would not have wandered off easily. He was likely led or coaxed by someone that he trusted. The Neptune and Uranus retrograde in Aquarius suggests he may still be trying to reach people spiritually or through signs. Pluto in Sagittarius implies a long-delayed justice or revelation, but also shows the truth will eventually surface. There is a karmic pattern here of a soul who came to awaken others, and his case continues to stir emotions and urgency, especially in spiritually aware individuals. This is part of his deeper soul contract to catalyze truth, advocacy, and protection of the vulnerable children. So this is why I feel like his and Sebastian's chart marry each other almost to a T. It's almost like Kyron's disappearance kind of started the movement, and Sebastian's have been carrying it on to make sure it's heard. So final reflections. Kyron Horman's chart is filled with grace, intelligence, and light. He is a child whose presence likely touched many. With that, his chart also shows a sensitive, trusting soul caught in a situation of deception, one which may have started a psychological control or grooming. Energetically, there's a lingering push for justice. His soul feels restless and is still waiting for the full truth to be acknowledged. His story wants to be told with dignity and courage by those who feel called to hold space for him. He may appear in dreams, symbols, or flickers of electricity. His spirit is not gone. He is trying to be found, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. So that's kind of just the end of the analysis of just Kyron's personality and what possibly led to his disappearance. I've already started going into a deeper aspect of that. I do have Terri's chart here. I also have how Terri basically kind of groomed him to get him. And when I say groomed him, I mean mentally groomed him to get him into the position of being compliant, in the sense of, whenever I tell you we're going to go. So you don't question too much. So I do think that that is what she did with him. And I do think that KP and CP did the same thing with Sebastian. I think they kind of let him know that something was coming, but not too much. So he didn't question it completely. So whenever it was time to go, if he would have been aware, then he would have just still kind of followed, because that's what they told him to do. So with the other chart, though, for Kyron, as we get further into it, again, I do have Terri's chart, so we'll go over hers. I do have the mental, not the mental, but kind of the psychological aspect between the two of them, and also what the soul kind of agreement was when they came into this life. And then I also do believe that someone helped Terri. So I was able to pull up a birth chart analysis for the person who possibly helped Terri. So we are going to share that too as we get more into Kyron's chart. But I wanted to add that as we go here, though, for Sebastian's, just because, again, I do feel that the two of them, their charts kind of have the same purpose in the sense of kind of exposing people, exposing the broken system itself, and how maybe that children like this who are just sweet and loving a lot of times fall between the cracks and they're not listened to because of the way that rather their parents and step parents can present themselves in a calm or put together manner. And sometimes it's not looked further into. So that's why they end up kind of sliding through those cracks. So that is going to be the end of Kyron's for now, though. And I'm going to do the same thing for Kyron as I've done for Sebastian. So probably about this next week coming up, I will start a astrology birth chart series for Kyron Horman as well. So we'll kind of add all of those as we go along too. And then we'll kind of do lives on that in case anybody has questions in between. They can always ask those questions on the birth charts. I actually love when y'all ask questions because that can give me a whole nother aspect that maybe I haven't thought of and I haven't looked into when doing those charts. So does anybody have any questions though? Kim, Chief, anybody who's in the room, does anybody have any questions about Kyron's chart or anything that we've done so far with Sebastian's or anything that y'all want to look into with Kyron's or Sebastian's that you would like me to ask? If you do, just leave it in the comment section and I'll be more than happy to look into that. And yeah, I mean, I just thought it would be important to kind of keep adding on to that birth chart analysis with different cases as we go along. So I'll give everybody kind of a second to write any comments or questions that they might have for the future birth chart for Kyron or even the future birth chart for Sebastian that I haven't maybe asked yet. So do you think from what you've read so far, Kim, or what you've looked into so far for Kyron, do you feel like some of what came out in his chart, is that kind of what you feel like his personality had been like or what you heard of his personality? The one thing that I did want to bring up from the picture of the science fair with Kyron Horman is in the picture of the science fair, he's wearing a CSI shirt. That's also another reason that I think, in my opinion, that Terri did plan it, because what are the chances of him wearing a CSI shirt on his science fair picture right before he goes missing? Now, I know that his stepfather, I believe, was a detective. So I think that a lot of people are kind of like, oh, well, he just loves CSI. And I think that's a good reason too. But the chances of him wearing a CSI shirt the day that he goes missing, and more than likely Terri is the one that dressed him, I think speaks volumes. So that's something that sticks out to me still, that Kyron's wearing a CSI shirt the day he goes missing. The same way with Sebastian, his phone wasn't around him. She took him to do all his favorite things. He even called his family and told them, wow, my mom cooked breakfast for me. I feel like that should have been a sign to his family that something was wrong, that Katie cooked breakfast. So just little things like that stick out. Okay, it gave you chills. So yeah, so and especially with Kyron being a Virgo, I'm also a Virgo. So when I look at like what his personality would have been like as a child, they very are pleasing. They just want to make you happy. They just want to do everything right. And so it's just in the same thing with Sebastian. It's just so heartbreaking when you realize what these people have done. They took advantage of these children's light and their goodwill to basically run their own interference of how horrible they can be. So, and hello, I'm too honest for this. Thank you for just listening and stopping by. I love to just have silent listeners too. So I'm also a silent listener for the most part. Yeah. And then you look at a lot of the stuff Terri has done, allegedly, we'll just say allegedly, but it's all out there. I mean, exes are saying the same thing about the hiring hitman and things like that. So yeah, you kind of look at that, and then you look at the past of CP and Terri Horman and both step-parent roles. I just don't understand how they haven't been looked further into. At least Terri. I mean, I'm sure they looked as far as they into it, but as they could. But see, I have one son and those two sweet boys just make me want to scream for justice. Yeah. And I agree. You know, I have both of my sons are on the spectrum, different levels, but both on the spectrum. And my oldest one just graduated in May. And, you know, I look at him and I just think of all the things that Sebastian should be enjoying with Seth and kind of, you know, and I guess what I'm trying to say about like the step parent situation that came up with CP and Terri, you know, these two wanted very much a lot of control over the situation with their stepchildren. And at least with KP, she was letting that happen. Now with Kyron, I don't think that was happening. But either way, I feel like when you're looking from the outside and you kind of see a step parent that's wanting so much control and wanting to just control the whole situation, that's a huge red flag. Like, there should be no reason that a step parent should be so invested into what their stepchild is doing to the point where they're causing like an uproar about it or something like that. Like where you see CP was doing that. He wanted the teachers to call him. He wanted to be the one to dish out discipline. He wanted to be the one to answer the phone whenever, you know, Seth called or something like that and give him an answer when really it was really none of his business. He really should have just stayed out of it. So when you look at that kind of situation, that is disturbing. So I think that's also something that, you know, if you're not aware of that kind of behavior, when you do have in a relationship and you're bringing them into the house with your child, always be aware. I feel like when you see a step parent who's acting like they're helping, but they're probably causing more harm than they're helping. Like, and that's something we'll get into later, but I did want to bring that up just because I think the line can be very blurred with step parents at certain points. Yeah. Yeah. And you can tell again with the step parents, because again, like for example, my oldest son's, you know, my partner is my oldest son's stepfather. He doesn't interject in things when not invited. You know what I mean? Like, even at that, he might give his opinion, but he's not pushing it on anybody. So when you see someone who is, oh, well, that's my child and I'm going to do this and because he's ours, and then that's an issue. Like, that's an issue. So there's no reason that they should be like that. Especially when they have children of their own on top of it. Like you look at CP, he wasn't even taking care of his own child. So why he was so like, I'm going to do this with Sebastian. He's going to call me Mr. Chris and he's going to do this and he's going to do that. Like, that's all very disturbing. It's not something that, wow, you're doing a great job and you're raising him right. It's something that's like, don't you feel like you should just kind of tone it down and back off some, because that's not your child. Like, I understand wanting to help and be a step parent, but there's also a line. There's a thin line. So when you see someone whose behavior is like CP and wanting to control things and acting like because they're the step parent, then their opinion matters, it kind of doesn't. I mean, in my opinion. So as long as the parent's there and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, I think that the step parent needs to back off a little bit if they're going to be with that kind of energy towards it. Let's see. I had to put in the divorce papers, he dealt with me and not her. Exactly. So if it's getting to the point where you and your ex, you know, partner make a decision for the, you know, your child and what's going to happen with them, and as soon as the step parent finds out, it's all up in arms again, and everything's flipped upside down because that's not what they want and they think it should be this way and that's their child too. Again, that's when you want to start really looking into what this person's about, what their actual goal is, because most of the time it's not the child. It's some kind of ego-driven, self-soothing thing that's wrong, you know, that they haven't been able to work out themselves. And that's just my opinion from, you know, what I've seen so far, especially looking into a lot of these cases with the, you know, children and the step parents that have been involved. It's always a step parent who's overstepping a boundary, acting like they're doing the discipline because they have to and they care about them and all this stuff. And again, you're looking at the parent too, like KP, who let it happen. But you always want to look at, you know, the step parent when they're behaving like that. And if you have to add things into the paper, then it's more than likely that they're causing an issue, you know, and you don't want that around. So, and that's just my opinion. So, I think there's amazing step parents and that they're very much needed in a lot of situations. But I also think that there are ones who a lot of time just don't like that the parents had a past and that they've had a kid with somebody else. And the only way they know how to control that is to control the situation. And that's when, again, you kind of want to be, red flags are starting to come up there. So that is the end. Well, that's not the end of Kyron's chart, but that's just kind of the beginning. Like I said, the next one will be going into Terri's a little bit more. And then I still have some of Sebastian's that I want to go into a little bit more with, but I'm kind of waiting for a little bit more movement in some of the areas before I release it. Yeah. Yeah. Like someone said something to me one time early on with my oldest son about his mother. And I was like, who? You know what I mean? Because I'm his mother. And they were like, oh, well, this person. I'm like, this person hasn't even been around that long to be calling themselves his mother. So I don't know who said that or why they said that. I was like, but he has one mother and that's me. And this other person has not been around that long. So I don't know where they would get off calling themselves mom. Never going to work out. Yeah. And that's another thing when you look at a lot of these situations too, when people get into it with cheating against the other one, it's almost even more volatile. It is more volatile even for the child because you're already bringing it in this situation that's not built on a good foundation. So what would make you think that the relationship between the child and the step parent are going to be on a good foundation if it's built on cheating and lies? It's usually not going to be. And that's where the control comes in. That's where when down the line, if, again, the biological parents agree on something and then the step parent realizes they weren't a part of that agreement, all of a sudden there's an issue. When, again, it's actually none of their business. As long as the biological parents are agreeing and they're getting along and there's no issue, there's no reason for a step parent to stick their nose in it. And that's just my opinion. So, and again, I do want to say I'm not saying this about every step parent. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you do have to be very cautious, like when Kim's saying, and I'm too honest for this, when people come in for the wrong reasons with the wrong motives, then more than likely the people around them are going to suffer in some way. So just always be on your P's and Q's when people show up that way in your life. When people show up in your life and their whole story is built on lies, more than likely there's going to be a lot of issues. It's never just like, oh, well, it just happened and, we didn't mean it to. You don't accidentally start doing that kind of stuff. Because, yeah. Well, like with KP and CP, like I do think that there was probably, in my opinion, some stuff growing up that probably did actually as far as like mess with their head in the sense of like they should have learned from it. They should have learned how to do better. They should have learned how to communicate better. They should have learned to be caring. All the things they didn't get. I don't feel like they got, those things as a child. So they didn't know how to return them, but they should have learned how to return them. They should have learned how to do better. They should have learned how to be patient, loving, kind, all of those things you're supposed to do. But instead they just repeated these horrible patterns they were taught. And instead of dealing with that now, they just numb it and tell the whole world that they're full of shit when it's actually them. So, and, it's never going to stop until they actually stop and recognize their own behaviors and what they're doing. But with KP and CP and Terri Horman, I don't think that's ever going to happen on their own. I think that they would have to be forced into it. And at that, I still only think that the sorrow would be for themselves and not everybody else that they damaged or hurt. Yeah. So these people never learn to change and kind of break the chains away from that. And so, yeah, that's again why I kind of wanted to bring in Kyron's chart though with Sebastian's, because Terri Horman is a quieter version of CP to me. That's the best way I think I could put it right now. Terri Horman's a quieter version of CP, but they both have the same demons in their head. same control factors, all that. So that is going to be the charts, though, that I'm sharing for tonight. And then I also do have, like I said, I will start that video next week for Kyron, and then I'll kind of also have another one that I'm working for with Sebastian. Yeah, the quiet ones need to be watched more sometimes, right? That's very true. They don't expose themselves as much. But that's going to be the chart, though, that I have for them both. There is also a song that I kind of wanted to share because I do like sharing songs with most of my lives and my charts, just kind of like whatever that I'm feeling kind of relates to it and that I hear. So I'm kind of going to pull up that song that I wanted to share with y'all in the meantime before we get ready to sign out. So I'm going to find that and I will be right back. Okay. And actually, before I bring up that, I do want to ask, I'm too honest for this. You did say CP gives Letitia Stotch vibes. I'm curious, do you think, and anybody who's in here, Kim, Chief, anyone, do you think that Letitia Stotch with Gannon, do you think that that was something that all of a sudden came about as far as like she kind of just snapped and did this? Or do you think that she was also slowly testing the waters? I'm curious with as far as y'all's opinion with that, because I don't know with Letitia if I feel like she was always that loose of a cannon or if something happened that maybe like set her over the edge, or if she was testing the waters kind of like Terri was. Because I almost felt like originally she kind of just like lost it or something out of nowhere. But when you look back at it, you think she was building it. Okay. So I was curious about y'all's opinion about that because, again, you know, a lot of these kids are on the spectrum too. So it does make you wonder. Calculating. So, yeah. And that's sad, you know, to hear in the sense of like, it makes you wonder what else was going on. And the same thing with Gannon, like even his mother had said in an interview how much Gannon loved her, like probably even to that very last moment. And it breaks your heart, you know, and you think of it with Sebastian, how much, and, you know, and I look at the Roadhouse video and I think what bothers me most about the Roadhouse video, when you look at it too, not only is her, how dismissive she is of Sebastian at the table while they're eating, when she knows exactly what's going to happen that evening. Not only does that break your heart, but like with everything that had been happening and CP was supposed to be removed out of that house and he had spent that whole day with her and he had called people telling her, you know, about she cooked him breakfast and then she took him to do all this fun things. It always breaks my heart thinking that Sebastian probably felt that day like, man, maybe things are finally changing, you know? Maybe this is actually going to stop. And she, you know, she loves me and things are going to change because she actually loves me. And she's showing it again. And then that happened that evening, you know? And so, and that's what's hard to watch in that video with Sebastian. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? So CP is just so full of shit. That's what I'm saying. And that's what he hates. That's what I'm saying. Like, and if I know most people in here, you know, and I'll bring up, do watch Mob Crew, but he can't stand Mob Crew because Mob Crew pretty much has his balls like in a like a death grip, in the sense that they have him on camera with his genius plan to sneak him out through the bushes, you know, that night. And it's like, you're caught. So now he's quiet and keeping it to himself. And you know, tries to act like, you know, whenever he says things to him, but I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Yeah, I kind of feel, and I know we're not supposed to like diagnose, but yeah, some of the tendencies they have are definitely psychopathic and sociopathic for sure. A little bit, Katie kind of reminds me more of a psychopath just because of her behavior. I feel like CP is more of a socio, but I do feel like Katie's more of a psychopath, in my opinion. Yeah, and that's the thing with him. He's a lot of bark and no bite, really. That's why he had to kind of pick on a child, because a real man would have knocked him out already, in my opinion. I honestly think Katie could rock his ass if she really wanted to. I really think she could. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I just think he's just full of them. You know, he's just insecure and loud. And he couldn't stand that Sebastian had more light and more honor as a man than he would ever have on his best day. And he doesn't even have a good day. So that just shows you how much he sucks. But yeah, he should have protected him. They all should have protected him, especially Sebastian. And well, not especially, but just all of them. You know, Sebastian just wanted to make him happy. He just wanted to make him happy. And it's just, yeah, little C. Yeah, that's his name. Little C is all mouth. Yeah, that's like, you look at him in some of the videos too, when they were having the vigils and how he's talking at people. I think I dropped out. My bad, y'all. Can y'all hear me now again? Yeah, but you look at him in the videos and stuff of him at the vigils and stuff, and he's trying to stand up to people, and you can tell he's trying to intimidate them, but he can't even reach eye level with them. CP can't. So, little man syndrome. Yeah, and I'm the same. I come from a line of like really strong women, like really strong women. So it's like I look at him and he looks about like the size of an ant to me. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't imagine this little dude running his mouth the way he runs it, and people just like, okay, so like, nah. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be able to put up with that. So I agree with you. I'm too honest for this, and Kim and Chief, you know, like, I come up from a stronger line of like standing up for yourself, and I don't know. And KP could have had that in her. So I don't know why. Like, why would you team up with such trash, especially against your own child? Yeah, works on a big crane because he feels so tiny, and probably doesn't even know how to do that right, to be honest. He probably can't even do that right. He probably gets in trouble all the time. Like, you know, I don't know. He probably has to, like, I don't know. I don't know. Chris told me something about they doing cranes, but I probably shouldn't bring that up in chat because I don't know if it's true. But it has to do with restrooms. That's all I'm going to say. So if he had a problem with pull-ups or diapers, it might be because he works in a crane. Maybe he can't make it down in time. Yeah. And even at that, his bark is just a bunch of noise. Like, it doesn't really make sense. He's not telling anybody anything that matters. It's just him running his mouth, you know? So, yeah, I think with the pull-ups, he's talking about himself because he can't make it down from the crane fast enough to not shit himself, in my opinion. So, got to focus on somebody else then, don't you? But there is a song, though, that I wanted to share. And I kind of like hear it basically. And I don't want to keep everybody too long because I think one of the creators who does a lot of, like, I think Mom Crew is getting ready to start his live. And I love to watch his lives on Sebastian and all of his updates. And I know everybody else does too. So I won't keep anybody too long. Yeah, it's like a month. Exactly. When, but everybody's just recording it like, oh, look at this little monkey, think he's doing something. You know? It's like he's doing absolutely nothing. In his mind, he is, but to everybody else, it's like, oh, look at him go. Let's wind him up and watch him go, you know? Yeah, his voice is like that. And that's what he's, and then it just, again, makes you feel like poor Sebastian that he had to listen to that. Such a sweet child. In his little video, it was so cute. There was one that I heard him play, and he had called Seth, and he was like, I have picture day coming up, and I'd really like a decent outfit. If you can send me a decent outfit. And I thought it was so cute that he said that. He was so like, oh, I want to look nice for my pictures. Give it booze and let it dance. Yeah, and that's what him and Katie are doing a lot of the times. I think they just keep themselves boozed up. So when they kind of go off on their rants, they have no idea how much everybody realizes that they're full of it as far as alcohol or whatever else. And then when you say like dance little piggy, he wears them shirts with all the pigs on him too, which I think is pretty ironic that he doesn't even, unless he's self-aware, he's doing it, but I kind of don't feel like he is. I don't feel like he's self-aware in the sense that he doesn't realize that everybody already thinks he's a pig. So when he wears these shirts with like pigs on him, it's like, is that like a message that you're one? Or like you don't care that people think you're one? Yeah. And he hasn't in a little bit. So it would be interesting, since he hasn't exploded in a while, I feel like he should. I feel like it's due. Like it's due time, right? Because I don't think Katie's ever going to do that. I think that Katie will be quiet for the most part to her D-Day, to be honest. Just because that's the way she is. But yeah, I think when things come out more for him, I think he will start kind of exploding again. I don't know how many channels will give him the platform to do so anymore, but it'll be interesting to see if he keeps doing it in the near future. But again, I feel like the tides are turning as far as them and any possible charges. And I kind of feel like that's why they're so quiet, because they realize there's been a whole nother uplift and kind of uprising again of wanting answers for Sebastian. And just kind of like, again, watching their past behaviors and not understanding how nothing came from that as far as any charges or anything like that. So, yeah. And that's the thing. He always explodes eventually. So right now, I'm kind of hoping this next one does him in completely, because he's been holding it in for a while, it seems like. So his next explosion should definitely give us some good content in the sense of like being able to finally be like, wow, this adds up to this and this and this and this, because he's kind of been doing that anyways. I haven't looked to see if Katie would get divorced in the future. I can look into that, actually. That'd be a nice one to look into next. I feel like they'll be arrested before they could get divorced. So I don't know if they would even possibly try to get divorced after that happens, or what kind of time frame that would be. I think there'd be a separation. I think they'd be quiet about it though. Like right now, I don't even think they're probably on good terms. I don't think they have been for a while. I think when Katie gets in her wasted of moments, I think that she like, oh, I let you convince me to do this, and now look where we are, and everybody knows what we are, and kind of thing. I think that's what she does. I think she flips it on him and blames him for convincing her that this was going to work. Even though, to me, in my opinion, she was the one that took weeks combing it over, in her first interview. She says that. She combed it over for weeks. So she did the planning with the security cameras, what the storyline was going to be. Well, the only thing they didn't plan for is for the world to fall in love with Sebastian and care. They thought because they didn't care that nobody else would. They didn't expect that, because narcissists and sociopaths usually don't. So let's see. Yeah, divorced again, right? They've been in and out so much. It seems like, are they actually even legally married? I don't know. I probably should know that, but they don't feel like, if you try to tap into their energy, they don't even feel like that. They don't feel like a legally married couple. They feel like people who are just covering each other's bullshit to get by, and then drinking and getting along with each other because they're drunk. I don't really think there's any much more to that. And that's just my opinion. Let's see. Yeah, his next wife will probably be a prison, like inmate from another jail, or somebody who, like a Chris Watts type situation. Apparently Chris Watts has some girl now too that's been going there for a long time. I saw it on Plunder. So I don't know I don't remember what her name was, but they said she's been going there for a few years now. So that's more than likely going to be Chris P or CP's next relationship in the future. Yeah, Katie's stuck. Katie's stuck in the sense that she let this happen. And she thought, again, not sure why, she thought the world wouldn't pay attention or notice. And now that they have, I mean, I think she thought Chris would look worse, but she looks even worse than Chris. They both look horrible, but you're the biological mother. You let this happen. You partnered up with him to let this happen. So, oh, look, a little spider. A little spider dropped down to say hello. I don't know if y'all saw it or not. Don't they? You know what's funny, Kim? And I was telling this to my Chris. It seems like when people cheat or they do really bad things with another person and they stay with them, they usually look like they're related. And I don't know what that's about. And that's just like a random thought, but you said it, so I thought I'd say it. But yeah, I've noticed that sometimes when people cheat and they're just or they're doing real horrible things and they're plotting against the world, most of the time they look like they could be brother and sister or something. I don't know. I just thought I'd point that out too. Because I thought that when I saw them too. I was like, it's so gross that they look like they could be related. Yeah. The more that goes on, she appears more guilty, in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that she helped plan it. I do think that she was the one that figured out about the security camera. All the things she brought up in the first interview, the things that she wanted to assure you of, that they've already looked those routes, it's because she covered those routes in her mind. She didn't cover them well, but she tried. That's what I thought, about it too, Kim. I'm like, how did this whole thing play out in her head that having his child was better than having her own? Again, I'm not, saying one's better than the other, but to even get the ball in motion, how did you get yourself in that mind frame? So again, it just shows you how not right they are, especially her. Yeah, Pinky in the brain. Exactly, that's what they are. They're an example of Pinky in the brain. We ain't got nothing else better to do, so what can we do that's going to fuck the whole world up today? Your favorite song? Yes, and speaking of songs, I still have a song that I'd like to share with you. And the reason, again, is because it's just a song that I hear sometimes whenever I'm kind of tapping into like Sebastian's energy, and it's more like kind of uplifted, you know what I mean? And kind of like a go get 'em kind of energy. So I'm going to pull that song up right now. I'm not going to be able to see y'all in chat, so 1 second. I apologize. I think y'all can see my screen. No, you can't see it. Okay. And sorry if I'm a little scattered, y'all. I try to stay on point, but my mind jumps all over the place. So I try to stay on the straight and narrow, but my brain doesn't work that way. So, use. I think it's this one. Yes, this has been fun. And I promise next time I'll try not to be like all over the place mentally. I'll try to stay on point. I even wrote like a point line, but again, my brain jumps everywhere. So before we sign out though, I'm going to go ahead and play this song and I hope that y'all enjoy it. The live will end after this song. So again, I want to thank Kim and Chief. I'm too honest for this. I want to thank y'all all for being here. Ken, thank you for dropping in earlier when you can. Thank you to all the silent listeners. I love you all, and let's go ahead and play this song. So I'm going to bring it up on the screen. Again, this is a song that I hear whenever, again, I'm channeling Sebastian and kind of the positive energy and hope, in the hopes that everything will kind of start. So 1 second. There's a little bit of a lag. Yes, they are two powerful souls. Both of them are. Kyron and Sebastian, their energies are just so sweet. They're very much both helping each other guide other children, along the path who have disappeared in similar ways, or just in general. Like not even kids that are missing, not even, they're just here whenever you need their support. So, they're both very uplifting and loving souls completely. So they're sweet to be around and to channel their energy, just sweet children. So let's play this song for them though, because I feel like this song very much represents their personalities, their strengths, and what's going to happen in the sense of the support from the universe coming their way. So let's go ahead and listen to this, y'all, and then it will automatically end after this video. So again, thank you all for being here. It's been wonderful, and I will see y'all next week.